You took me out to the garage, had me close my eyes, and then all of a sudden you said, okay, you can open your eyes now. And there she was. It was a toilet for Valentine's Day.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Because nothing says, I love you like a toilet. This is the Dear Bob and Sue podcast, our stories of adventures and misadventures as we travel to all the U.S. national parks and other public lands. I'm Karen Smith.
And I'm Matt Smith. We're the authors of the Dear Bob and Sue series of books. Today's episode is about our experience renting a teardrop trailer and camping in it in a few parks in Southern California.
The show is a little bit of a comparison to our previous episode about RV camping. We wanted to find out if teardrop trailer camping is for us, and hopefully it will give you an idea of whether it's for you as well.
We found that our enjoyment of the teardrop was dependent on a handful of factors, but we'll dive into that in more detail in the episode.
And to kick things off, we talk about a few items we always carry in our backpacks. And at the end of the episode, we'll answer a question from a listener in our mailbag segment. So being the neat freak that you are, did you notice that this past week I got out all my backpacks and emptied them out and scrubbed them down and sorted through all the stuff? Did you see the piles?
Yeah, I thought you were having some kind of brain seizure. I didn't know why you were cleaning.
I don't know. Something got into my feed. I just felt the need. And you know what I found in the backpack that I usually take? I found a half-eaten peanut butter and jelly sandwich from like a month ago.
Oh. I have done that. Mm-hmm. I have recently cleaned out my backpacks and I have found half-eaten stuff. I've also found the sweaty shirt that I always put a little bag, in my backpack with clean clothes. And so when we get to the top of the mountain or wherever and I change shirts and I put the old one in a ditty bag and I put it in the bottom of my backpack. Mm-hmm. Well, a few months later, you dig it out.
Yeah, that's not going to go in with any of my laundry.
Ooh. I don't think it's salvageable.
Yeah. Before I started carrying a backpack 10 years ago, I didn't understand your need to have you had 8 different backpacks, and I never could understand it until now. I realized you kind of need different ones for different excursions. Right.
Yeah, sometimes there is a reason for what I do.
Right. I have 3 now. I have my everyday carry, the one that I like the best. EDC. But it's only for about, I'd say a 3 to 4 hour hike because it's not that big. And then I have that bigger one that you bought me if it's an all day hike. And then I have the monster backpack for the backpacking trips.
Now you have some things that you always keep in your backpack. So how do you do that when you have 3 backpacks? Do you move it? Move all your essentials?
Yes. I always keep them in the one that I use the most. And then if I'm going to switch, I switch them out. But that does get to be a hassle because sometimes, you'll forget or you'll leave something.
I take everything out of my backpacks except the sweaty shirt that I leave in there for months. And then repack each time, which isn't working for me.
I know.
Because then I forget stuff.
Yeah.
Although there's a few things that I always have.
Plus, seasonally you have to bring different stuff, right? You have to bring extra clothes and you have to bring sunscreen or not sunscreen, bug spray or not bug spray. So yeah, it's kind of a thing. But anyway, I got mine all cleaned out. Did you see how I laid out all the stuff on the rug and tried to organize it?
Yeah, that's when I thought you were having your brain seizure.
Nope, got it all organized.
Yeah, I saw that you had it all organized and you have some things in there. I don't even understand why some of that stuff. I saw a mirror. So that you can always check your makeup on the hike?
What if I had to signal a rescue airplane for us if we were lost?
Oh, is that what the mirror is for? So when we're on the hike and you whip that thing out and you're checking your makeup, you're actually signaling aircraft at the same time? Or?
Well, I could be. I think that you shouldn't make fun of it because it could save our lives one day.
Yeah. I'll make fun of it.
It's one of those plastic mirrors from the travel store, not the travel store, from like REI, that it's for the outdoors. And so just think though, like if you got something in your eye, you know, I mean, you need a mirror, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Got something in your teeth.
What? And you use the mirror to get it out of your teeth? What? I don't know. I don't understand. What else do you have in there?
Well, you know, I have the 10 essentials, but besides that, I never go anywhere without my corkscrew. It's that waiter's friend corkscrew that folds up.
You've bought like 20 of those in the last 10 years, about one every 6 months.
I know, because every time we fly somewhere and I take my backpack, it gets confiscated by the TSA.
Or you could just leave it at home.
Yeah, they consider it a weapon because there's a little foil cutter for the wine bottle on there, and so they think I
bring a plane down with a corkscrew.
So, yeah, but I always have that in there, and think of how many times that saved us when we needed a beer bottle opener or a wine bottle opener. I mean,
it's come in handy. I have a couple of things that I've always carried, and I don't know why I carry them, but they're like on certain essentials lists. Like, for instance, rope. I have a 30-foot piece of nylon rope that...
You have never used that in the 12 years that we've been hiking.
I used it once in the Grand Canyon to make a clothesline.
Oh.
And what I found was that it got tangled, and it took me so long to untangle it that I ended up using only 7 of the 30 feet. And so I made a 7-foot clothesline, and then the other 20 plus feet were just all balled up in the tree. And so I don't think you need 30 feet. Well, like what would I need 30 feet of nylon rope for ever?
To lower me into some of those slot canyons.
Okay. So in other words, I could stop carrying the nylon rope.
You know,
what does that look like? Make some kind of knot and make a harness out of that rope and lower you down? That's not going to happen.
Okay, think of the times we've been turned back because we couldn't get down or up some of those dry pour-offs.
So I lower you down, and now you're down at the bottom with my 30-foot piece of nylon string.
Okay.
And then how do I get down? I just jump?
Your legs are a lot longer than mine.
Okay.
All right. We'll have to rethink that one.
No, I have other things that I carry all the time.
Like what else? What couldn't you live without in your backpack?
I don't know. It's hard for me to take the Imodium AD out.
Because when you need it, you need it.
Yeah, that's always there at the bottom somewhere. Mm-hmm. Although I'll never find it if I ever need it.
I know. You've also shared it with friends in emergency cases.
Yeah, sometimes it's you put things in your pack for other people. Like our first aid kit. We have never once used our first aid kit for ourselves.
I know, but you've patched up a lot of people along the trails.
Yes. Remember that lady? And we were in Sabino Canyon, and she was cut and she was bleeding. And I was like a MASH doctor.
You were.
And, used everything in my first aid kit.
Uh-huh. You had the sanitary wipes out, and I'm surprised you didn't stitch her up with a needle and a thread.
Well, yeah, but we still carry the first aid kits. I'm not even sure what's in our first aid kits. I mean, we could open them.
It's probably expired.
What, like the Band-Aids are expired?
No, stuff like the antibacterial ointment and all the other stuff has expiration dates. You should probably spring clean your backpacks, I would suggest.
Yeah. Get all the dirty clothes out of the bottoms.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We are recording episode 10.
Yeah. I can't believe we're already on episode 10.
Did you think we were going to make it to 10?
You know, doing that very first one was a little rough. It was a lot of different takes. But
a little rough.
Rough for our producers.
And it's so much smoother now.
That's right. We've learned a few things. So we're on episode 10. And today we're going to talk about renting a trailer and taking it to some of the desert parks in California. In episode 5 of our podcast, if you remember, we talked about renting an RV. And so the following month in February, we rented a trailer.
Yeah, that year we were trying different things. So we did our RV 1 month, then we did a teardrop trailer, picked it up in the Las Vegas area, Henderson, Nevada. We found a gentleman who was renting rugged teardrop trailers, and we picked it up from him and did a swoop through the Southwest, Mojave National Preserve, then Joshua Tree, then Death Valley, and then back to Las Vegas to drop the trailer off. So this was a rugged teardrop.
I wasn't exactly sure what the difference was because it looked pretty much the same as other teardrop trailers that we've seen.
Well, rugged is, it depends on the trailer, of course, but rugged generally means that the tires are a little bit rougher so that they can go on rougher terrain. The clearance underneath the trailer is a little bit higher so that, you can take it on uneven roads. And that this one was fairly Spartan. There was not a lot there wasn't much in it that could get shooken or upended if you were going on bumpy roads. So a teardrop, the name comes from years and years ago, back in the, 40s, 50s, 60s. It was a popular type of trailer. And if you look at it from the side, it looks like a drop of water, a teardrop.
They're so cute.
They swoop back to be aerodynamic. And essentially on the inside, it's about the size of either a twin bed or a queen size bed, depending on what size you get. Ours had a queen size bed in it. And in the back, that there is a hatch that opens up, and sometimes they've built in little kitchens with propane stoves and things like that. Ours had just a regular door and a few shelves.
Right. There was no kitchen on there.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So some of the differences from the RV that we rented was this trailer didn't have a heater, and it's so small on the inside that there isn't room to do anything except for sleep on the bed or...
What else did you want to do on the inside?
Why does your mind always go there?
I don't know. There was nothing else. You could do all sorts of things. You could sit up.
I was about to say you can change your clothes laying on the bed, because that's what I had to do. You can wiggle into your clothes while you're laying on the bed. And there's no bathroom. And as Matt just said, we also did not have a kitchen, all the things that we had in the RV. So it was definitely more Spartan and more primitive and more...
but it's very comfortable. I mean, it's a bed on wheels.
It's a bed on wheels.
And covered. So there's zero setup time when you get to a campsite.
Right.
And you're protected from the weather. Now, it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't have a toilet, and I knew this when we rented. So for a couple of months, I was trying to figure out exactly what was going to be our solution to going to the bathroom. Of course, we're going to be at campsite, so there's always,
Mm-hmm.
But I did find a portable toilet, and it was so cool. It was like a briefcase. Looked just like a briefcase, but there's 3 little legs on the bottom of this case that flip out, and then this lid that opens up, and then you have this toilet seat, and then they make these little disposable bags that clamp into the toilet seat, and so there you go. You can go anywhere you want. You
just set up your little toilet.
Yeah, yeah. Now, of course, you're not just going to set it up in the middle of the campsite. You have to have a little tent to go around it. So they make these privacy tents that's basically the shape and size of a telephone booth. So you pop up your little personalized tent and put your toilet in there, and then you have perfect privacy. Matter of fact, I was so proud of that was your gift that year for Valentine's Day.
I do recall, because I remember several days before we left on this trip, You came into the house and you said, I'm going to give you your Valentine's Day gift early. It's in the garage, which should have been a warning sign right there when your Valentine's Day gift is in the garage, unless, of course, it's a new car. So you took me out to the garage. Right? I already knew that wasn't it. You took me out to the garage, had me close my eyes, and then all of a sudden you said, okay, you can open your eyes now. And there she was. It was a toilet for Valentine's Day.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Because nothing says, I love you like a toilet.
Yeah. Well, when you have to go, that's when you're going to appreciate it. You might not appreciate it now because you don't, standing in the garage. But when you have to go.
Yeah. I thought of you every time I sat on that toilet mat.
That's like, I feel like you were unappreciative of that gift.
No, it's still, it's the gift that keeps on giving.
So we had that with us.
Mm-hmm. So that was our bathroom.
So we beelined it from the Seattle area down to Las Vegas in early February that year, and stocked up on supplies as we went down. Lots
of snack foods and unhealthy things like we always do. So we knew that we would be camping either over a campfire. So we had,
we wouldn't be camping over the fire.
No, I'm sorry. We would be cooking. Thank you. We would be cooking over a campfire. So we had brought some pots and pans and things with us. Or we figured if we ran into bad weather, we could use our jet boil. So we had that as well.
I love the jet boil.
Mm-hmm, I know you do.
Well, we got down there to Henderson, and we were going to pick this trailer up on a Saturday morning.
Bright and early,
like 8 a.m.
At the guy's house.
Yeah, I think we woke the guy up.
Yeah.
Is a nice gentleman who had a few trailers, and that's kind of, he did this on the side, rented them out. So we get to his house, and the trailer's like parked right, next to his house. And we meet him, and he starts showing us everything that goes along with the trailer. I think he gave us, a camp table, and he had other things like, extra camp fuel and chairs and stuff like that, and awning. Was asking us what we wanted. So we decided on like what all stuff we needed. And he's like, okay, just back her on in to pick up the, to hook up the trailer. And like, I'm not good at backing up.
No, we discussed that.
There was like zero clearance on either side of it. It was on the side of his driveway. I had to go up like onto a sidewalk and like put the back of my truck right in the right spot without like taking out the neighbor's tree or something like that. So that was a trick. It took me several tries to do that. And then we get it all hooked up. And he has his little checklist, and it's like, okay, let's go through all these things and make us sign the waiver so that if anything bad happens, it's not his fault. And he says, okay, let's check the lights, and I get in the truck and press on the brake. And I press on the brake. He goes, press on the brake, and I did, and no lights. So we went through this long ordeal of trying to get the electrical hookup to work. And
yeah, and
I thought for sure, like, he's not going to let us take the trailer because.
Well, I know you can't take it without brake lights, and my heart sunk because I thought, what are we going to do for a week?
Go to Las Vegas.
Well, I guess we could have.
We could have checked into the Venetian, and we would have been laying by the pool.
Well, in hindsight, that would have been a much better.
Rented a cabana and written a whole different book. But no, finally, you kept saying, well, can't you just like smack it? I was underneath the truck trying to figure out, did my electrical connection come loose or something? And I hate to even admit this, but
yes, say it slowly and clearly so everyone can hear.
Eventually I smacked it.
And
it worked.
And so what you're saying is?
You had a lucky guess. And then our vacation was back on.
It was on because the brake lights came on. He smacked it and it worked. And
then we start pulling away from his house. He was a really nice guy. And he's like, okay, good. Well, And as we're like pulling away, he's like standing right next to the driver's side window, and I'm shaking his hand. He goes, "Have fun." He goes, "Oh, by the way," and he had a thick accent, and he said, "Just remember, big." What did he say? He said like,
"Feely big
fins this weekend."
Feely big fins.
Feely big fins. And I'm like, what does that mean? And I was just so
that's waving
I was
and
just so happy that the brake lights worked. We just pulled away, and we just about 5 miles later, feely big fins. He was saying really big winds, like there was a cold front coming in
with really big winds.
Yeah, and he wasn't going to tell us that until we were like ready to drive away.
Until he had our credit card number.
Yeah, so we went out to from the Las Vegas area, drove out to Mojave. I love the Mojave Preserve.
I love it too. We've been there many times now.
It's like there's nobody there. It's like nobody's home.
It is like no one's home, and it's
you have
huge.
The place to yourself. Yeah,
I looked it up. It's 1.6 million acres, and there's never anyone there. And it has everything. It has sand dunes and cinder cone volcanoes and canyons and mountains and mesas and no people.
And so we should say, if you like desert areas that are deserted, right? And we do, and we like hiking in the desert. If that's not your thing, you would think like, why the heck are we here? But yeah, we like that. And there was one place in particular that we like going. So we drove I-15 southwest out of Vegas. And once we get into California, we take the SEMA.
Yeah, the SEMA road exit.
To the south.
Right.
Into the park.
Into the park. And that is spectacular, even if you don't get out of your car, because there are thousands and thousands of Joshua trees lining both sides of that road. In fact, it's one of the largest and densest Joshua tree forests in the entire world. I mean, there's probably more there than in Joshua Tree National Park.
And it's a beautiful area. And it feels like you're driving through a Dr. Seuss book.
It does.
The Joshua trees are cool to look at.
Yeah. So we were headed to the campground that we were going to is called Hole in the Wall Campground. And we've never camped there before, but we've been there a handful of times because there's a really great hike back there that we like to do. And there is a visitor center / ranger station that's open sometimes. Seems to also be closed a lot. So anyway, that's where we were headed. And good thing we had that rugged teardrop because there's a section of rough road that you have to go over to get there. Yeah,
and it worked great. Maybe the rugged tires and the extra clearance helped, but no problem getting over there.
That's right. And now this particular campground does not take reservations. So I was a little nervous, like I always am, that what if we get there and there aren't any, campsites available. But sure enough, when we pulled in, gosh, I think maybe there was only, one or two other.
There weren't many people.
Yeah, hardly anyone. So then we did the, which campsite should we choose?
Right.
Where we pull into one, oh, that one over there looks better. No, that one over there looks better.
Well, the one we chose was one of the few that is has a circle drive.
That's right.
So you don't have to back in.
So
that's once I saw the circle drive, that's it.
That was it.
We're gonna stay here for the night. To the south or southwest is Barber Peak. And we've hiked that a few times. Matter of fact, on this particular trip, we got the teardrop situated, and then we went on the Barber Peak Loop Trail.
Yeah.
And we could just go right from the campsite.
So this Barber Peak Loop hike is it's a little over 5 miles. And you can take a detour at the end and add on another hike called the Rings Loop, which is very short but very fun.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a little slot canyon.
But it climbs up, or you have to climb up, or I guess down if you're going in the opposite direction. So the Park Service has installed these metal rings into the canyon walls. And basically you're pulling yourself up with some of the ones on the side. And then there's a few sort of in the middle that you can step on. So it's very fun. You kind of had to boost me a few times because my legs weren't long enough. It's a great hike, and that took us a couple hours in the afternoon.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a break from the wind because of the Barber Peak has kind of blocked the wind for half of the hike. But when we got back to the campsite, it was still very, very windy. Matter of fact, we get back there and I thought, well, we'll get some snacks out or something and try to fix dinner. And I opened the back hatch of the teardrop and like our food went flying. It was just crazy windy.
Yeah, I had envisioned that we'd get the chairs out and sit by the fire and have a beer and cook dinner. Like I had this whole scenario in my mind, and it was basically we got into the bed in the trailer at like 4:30 in the afternoon.
Like what are we going to do now?
I know.
And then we made like peanut butter jelly sandwiches or something for dinner.
Yeah, I think we ended up going to bed at like 7:30. As soon as it got dark.
We did. And then we realized pretty quickly, because the temperature dropped like a rock.
Yes.
The inside of the trailer, it was nice and warm. And we had thick blankets. And of course, I was wearing like all my clothes.
You had on a down jacket, your wool beanie, and your gloves.
I think I left that down jacket on for about 4 days.
I think you did,
never took it off. But we quickly realized that we had a choice. We had a choice of being warm or being able to breathe because the humidity went up so fast with our breath inside there. And there was a vent in the roof. And of course, when I opened the vent, there was something about the wind that was like howling through the vent that was making a really loud noise that was keeping us up, but it was providing fresh air. But then the temperature went down like another 20 degrees inside the teardrop. So that was it was a very comfortable bed.
The bed was comfortable, very cozy. And I did like that. So there are doors on both sides of the teardrop. So no matter which side of the bed you're on, you can climb in and out. And those doors lock. So it made me feel very safe that, nobody was going to come in and bother us. And we were away from animals and tarantulas and snakes and all that kind of thing.
Yeah,
so
that
was
nice.
that was a
nice
plus.
To know nothing's going to knock on the door.
Yeah. One of the negatives, though, is having to get up in the middle of the night and go to the bathroom because the bathroom was a little bit of a hike.
Yeah. Well, it was, I don't know, maybe like 100 yards away, something like that, or maybe 200. Yeah. It was pretty far. I was able to go pretty quickly because it was, again,
I think you set the like speed record.
0 degrees outside and 50-mile-an-hour winds. And it took me about 13 seconds to go to the bathroom. You were concerned.
Well, I thought when you left, I thought you were going to the restroom facility, but you jumped back into that trailer in like 20 seconds.
Yeah, you're not supposed to pee like on the campsite itself. Yes, you're supposed to use the facilities. But I can tell you for a fact that like I peed 10 feet away from the trailer and it never hit the ground. Like it's like still circling the planet in the jet stream. Like I guarantee you, like I did not pollute the campsite.
Did you have to hang on to the door handle while you were?
Like I thought I was going to like tumbleweed across the campground.
It was a little freaky too because there was some weird flapping noise that went on all night long in the wind, and it did sound like somebody was kind of trying to get in the door.
I think it was our neighbors. They had a tent on top of their Jeep, and I think they had a flap that was moving. But anyway,
so basically, not a whole lot of sleep was happening in that teardrop trailer that night.
But we still had a lot of fun. I wouldn't want to do that particular evening a second time.
Yeah.
But the next day we got up and
you were going to cook me a nice breakfast.
Well, I was going to cook, bacon and eggs. And so I get up. I didn't sleep much. And so at about maybe 5:15, I noticed that there was no more wind sound. So I thought, I'm just going to go out and see what it's like. And it's now like 5:30. No wind. It was so nice out there. It was like a Christmas miracle. The feely big fins went away, and I get out the jet boil and I'm making coffee, and it was like a practical joke. Like by 5:45, the wind was back to like 50 miles an hour, and I was trying to keep the jet boil from flying out of my hands, so that we didn't have like the campfire breakfast. We
didn't.
Up
and because our next stop was Joshua Tree National Park, so we decided that it would be time to start heading in that direction. And I just remember when we got in the truck to drive down there, and you turned the heater on, it was like the best thing ever.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm going to sleep in the driver's seat.
Yeah, for sure. So I think it took us about 2 hours to get to our next campground, which was Indian Cove in Joshua Tree. And that is on the north side of the park. And it's located about halfway between the two towns of 29 Palms and the little town of Joshua Tree.
Yeah, we must have gotten there like 9 a.m.
We did. I remember because it wasn't check-in time. I think check-in time was like 2.
And it felt like the middle of the day for us.
Yeah.
And so we got this particular, I think you had reserved this campsite. And when you reserve these campsites, like on recreation.gov, you see the map and you find an open spot. And so you got campsite number 22.
Right. And there weren't very many left when I got on to get them. There wasn't a very big choice at that time.
So we drive through the campground and we see 21 and we see 23 and we see 24 and like no 22.
No.
And we kept circling the campground and couldn't find number 22. So finally I stopped on the side of the road and went up to this gentleman who was sitting in a lawn chair at number 23. And I just asked him, I said, "What? Do you know where campsite 22 is?" And he didn't even speak. He just like pointed to the ground at his feet, like in front of like his lawn chair. And I'm like, there was like 12 feet wide path, like where you would put the trailer.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah, and I think he had been there a while in that lawn chair, like a few days, and he wasn't going to move anytime soon. He had several kids like riding big wheels around him and stuff, and I just looked at that knowing that
no way
how good I am at backing stuff up. Like there was no way. Literally had I put the trailer in to give you enough space on one side to open the trailer door to get inside, the other door would like hit him in the knees.
Yeah.
If we opened it up on the other side. So I thought, well, this isn't going to work. So.
No, we don't want to be that close to anybody.
So to make a long story short, we went to the ranger station. We found another site, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, and I have to say that campground is beautiful.
Yeah, it's a great campsite.
It's in the area of the Wonderland of Rocks, which is really the best way to describe the campground because there are these huge boulders everywhere. And a lot of the campsites are separated by boulders, so you have a sense of privacy. Now, obviously, our campsite number 22 wasn't, but the new campsite we had was fantastic.
Yeah, and they're spectacular at night because if you have a little campfire, then the light from the fire bounces off the rocks, and it's great for like some night photographs. Anyway, we had our little spot, and I did finally get to cook a campfire meal. What did we have? We had ravioli and
we had chicken sausages. We had a feast, and it was a beautiful night. Yeah. Oh, and I should say before we had dinner, we did go on a hike. We didn't want to spend a lot of time driving around to, go into the park and go on a hike. So actually on the same access road that you enter the campground, there is the trailhead for the Boy Scout Trail. That Boy Scout Trail runs for, probably at least 10 miles. But we hiked, I don't know, maybe 3 miles or so and turned around and came back and just to stretch our legs.
Yeah, get a little exercise in.
Yeah, it was beautiful. So it was a good day. We had a great evening and a great dinner. But after we got in bed and fell asleep, it got to be freezing that night. freezing.
It was a cold trip. The whole trip was cold.
Yes.
Yeah. And I still had the down jacket on that I
I know. You never every single picture of you I have from the entire trip, you're wearing that same down jacket. And then unfortunately, when we woke up in the morning, the wind was back.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the story of the trip so far.
And that particular site that we had only had it for one night because somebody else had it for that night. So we had to go through the routine again. Now, that next day was a Monday. Mm-hmm. And so we went back to the ranger station and had to, find another spot. But the ranger there, she said, well, being a Monday, a lot of the spots are open.
Sure, because people were leaving.
We found another one in the back area on a back loop that was perfect. So we packed up, got the trailer to the new site, and then
But Matt, back it up. You make it sound so simple. It was not that simple. We had to drive around and look at every single site. You know how picky you are.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, we check where the rocks are, where the picnic table is, where the fire grate is, the little fire pit. And so there's a lot of factors. Mm-hmm. And then you have to find one that you can back into, which for me is not easy. So
yeah.
It took a while.
It did take a while. And I sat in the truck as you would get out and sort of walk through each one, basically with a clipboard in hand doing an inspection. But the one you found was fantastic. In fact, I think it was even better the second night.
So now that we had a new site, we were able to drop the trailer off and take the truck into the park. And so that was our first full day in the park. And we went to the ranger station that was further to the west.
Yeah, there's a big ranger station in the little town of Joshua Tree, right outside one of the main entrances into the park. So we went in there and stood in line and waited to talk to one of the rangers for some suggestions. We've done a lot of great hikes in the park. We've done Ryan Mountain is a great one. It's
Ryan Peak, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a stair step. It's got some altitude to it, but some incredible views from the top.
Yeah, at the top. It's, I think, panoramic view.
Yeah. And then the one you love, what is that, Lost Horse Mine? Mm-hmm. We've done that a couple times. That's a very cool hike. So anyway, we were looking for some suggestions of a new hike to do, and the ranger set us up. She recommended that we hike in the Black Rock Canyon area, which was a little bit to the west. And it's actually kind of a remote section of the park. Not a lot of people there. There is a campground. So we headed over there. She had recommended a hike called Panorama Peak or Panoramic Peak.
Panorama Loop. It was a loop. Mm-hmm. And again, maybe because it was a Monday, we saw like one other couple.
Yeah.
On the entire hike. And it had an elevation gain. I mean, it felt like, you really got a workout, maybe not as hard as Ryan Peak, but pretty close.
Yeah, I think especially at the end, I think there was about a 1,200 foot elevation gain up to this ridge line. And then you hike along the ridge line. So you've got views in every direction. And the whole hike was about 6.5 miles round trip, but it's a fantastic one. And one of the reasons I wanted to do it is because the ranger had said that this area of the park has some of the largest Joshua trees in the entire park. Oh my gosh. We'll post this on our website, but I have a picture of you walking under a Joshua tree that is it's like a Joshua tree on steroids. Right. It's huge.
And they don't know how old the Joshua trees are because a Joshua tree does not have growth rings like other trees do, so that they don't really know how old they are. But they were huge trees on that hike.
So as usual, the ranger was spot on, and I have to say, we always get great advice from rangers. And so it's just, if you're looking for something to do, I think you can never go wrong asking a ranger for suggestions for hikes because they know the best areas to go.
That was our last day at Joshua Tree. So we were on our way from there to Death Valley. And what's funny is we wrote, so this particular trip we wrote about in Dear Bob and Sue season 3. And so people have asked us like how how we write the books. Like, do we take notes? And, because we write the books like several months after the trip. And so one of the things we do is for a given day that we write the email for, we first list out all the things that happened that day. And I just make notes to myself of things I want to cover in the email. And when we were writing the book for this particular day, it was so funny because I wrote all my notes out just like in really rough format. And when I got done looking at them, I thought, well, this is just good, just the way it is. Like,
yeah. So we published in the book Matt's random notes from that day. Basically, it was, so it was the day we woke up and drove to Death Valley National Park.
So I'm going to read some of them for that email entry. For this was February 13th, 2018. So I said, first one was, woke up so cold I was ready to give up on life.
You and me both.
I think I had scribbled that on a piece of paper and put it like in the truck somewhere. Karen says we're too soft to be campers.
And we are.
Obvious. Spent 20 minutes looking for the only clean T-shirt I had left. So I thought I knew I had one clean T-shirt. And this is like day 3 or something. And I finally gave up later, like while we were driving, I realized because I felt my shirts, I had it on. It was
you had on everything you brought.
I had it on between 2 other shirts. Here's another note, camping truth. No matter how many wet wipes you bring, it's never enough. We lost all sense of cleanliness. All of our silverware was equally dirty. So if you did, the deal is, as long as there's no food still on the fork, it's clean.
Sure. That makes sense.
What else? Karen said to me this morning, you just dried the inside of your coffee cup with the same towel you just wiped the tailgate of the truck down with.
And that worried me.
It's like, yeah. And the problem is we were finally able to cook breakfast over a campfire, and you wanted your eggs runny. So we had this long conversation about not only should you not have runny eggs, but nothing in life is good when it's runny. Oh, yeah. Here's another note. Karen says she's been burning her used toilet paper, but I keep finding it in the map pocket of the truck on your side.
Well,
so like I don't know how those two things could be true at the same time.
That was Kleenex.
So I was just going to decide we were going to sell the truck when we get home. And then here's like after 3 days of camping, the only reason I didn't give up on life is because on our way from the campsite to Death Valley, we were going to go through town and go to McDonald's
for breakfast.
Or I'd get a sausage biscuit with egg and everything would be fine. I think it's the only time I've ever seen a McDonald's closed.
I know, so random and disappointing.
Yeah, there should be a rule.
I know.
Like if you own a McDonald's and you close it, like I don't care for what reason, for just like one day, you should have to like put covers over the sign and take the golden arches down. Like you can't have a McDonald's and have it be closed. So I was
was a bummer.
Ready to give up on life. So yeah, those were some of the I mentioned that like I was. After 3 days of camping, I was down one hole on my belt, and I was eating Christmas cookies every morning for breakfast. So,
one thing you didn't mention that I recall in vivid detail because it's etched on my brain is when you tried to race the freight train through the intersection.
Yeah, and we won. we could see it. We could see it for miles away, and I knew that I was.
You wanted to beat that arm coming down. The ding, ding, ding. Yeah.
I was going to beat the train. And you were so scared. You put your feet up on the dashboard and you couldn't speak. All you did was you kept going, ding, 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 ding. Like you were trying. Like that was closing. Yeah.
That was insane. I mean, like, what are we, like Thelma and Louise all of a sudden?
No, we made it.
I know. Barely.
Yeah. So one more note. My Fitbit says I haven't slept in 3 days.
And that I think is actually pretty accurate.
That was definitely true.
But we had really high hopes about Death Valley because we knew it would be warmer. And We love Death Valley. I don't know, we've been there maybe half a dozen times now. So it is the largest national park in the lower 48 states. It's massively huge.
It's huge. It's mostly in California, but some of it's in Nevada.
Mm-hmm. And they have mountains that rise as high as 11,000 feet. And also, fun fact, 93% of the park is designated wilderness.
Our campsite reservation was in the Furnace Creek Campground.
Mm-hmm.
So we pulled in there, and it has, like, every campsite is a paved pad.
Yeah.
So very different situation.
The opposite of Indian Cove. And I have to say, it was a little disappointing just because there was zero privacy. You're looking at everyone across from you, next to you, behind you. There were no trees. I mean, it was pretty ugly, you have to say.
Well, it had nice toilets.
It did. The saving grace was it had flush toilets and running water.
Every campsite, the cement, the concrete pad is in nice, perfect order, except for there was this one site that was kind of in an odd spot where it was kind of hard to back in. And of course, that was ours.
Of course it was.
And so I kept trying to back the trailer into the site, and I kept missing it.
And there was a whole crowd of people watching you.
Yeah.
That whole thing took over an hour.
It took a while.
Yeah, it took a while to get our little tiny teardrop situated in that. But yeah, it's a big campground. It's right adjacent to the Furnace Creek Visitor Center. So it's a great location.
Yeah. So when we had to go to the restroom, you could have, depending on what time of day it is, at night, I think they closed those visitor center restrooms, but we were close enough to the visitor center. You go to the restroom in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it was very convenient. We did some hikes from there. But then the next day,
Valentine's Day.
It was Valentine's Day. Very, very big day. I had already given you your gift, so I was good there.
Mm-hmm.
But what we learned a tip from someone. I forget how we learned this, but the Furnace Creek, it's kind of like a resort, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I think it has a new name now. It's called the Oasis or
the Ranch at Furnace Creek. They keep changing the name.
It's something else.
Yeah.
But at the time, I think they still do, they had a pool. And so if you stayed at the Furnace Creek Ranch, you had like a motel room, you could also then use the pool. But if you don't stay there, you can buy a day pass for like, I don't know, it's like something like $5. Yeah. And then you have pool privileges, which you also get. They have restrooms there with showers.
Nice showers.
So that was your other Valentine's Day present. I wanted to keep the theme to personal hygiene for that particular Valentine's Day. And so I bought you a day pass and myself a day pass. I splurged.
Yeah.
And so the next morning we were up at I think we got up at 6:30 and hiked over. We had our backpacks. We were ready to go. And then they were like, no, the pool doesn't open till 8.
Yeah. We had to wait.
Well, what are we going to do for the next hour and a half? So, we went back at 8:00.
And it was one of the best showers I've ever had. I mean, we were really dirty by then. So yeah, hot showers and clean clothes, the last of the clean clothes. So the day started out really, really great.
And then we came back. It was too early to hike. I don't know why.
It was only 9:00.
Yeah, so we decided we were going to just sit at the campsite. It wasn't windy anymore, so the wind was gone, and we're just going to make coffee and sit at the campsite. And so I got all the stuff out and making coffee, and we're sitting in our chairs. And then we realized, and I think we may have realized before, but it hit us at that point as we're sitting there drinking our coffee, is that our site was right across from the dump station.
Yeah. Well, it hit us because people started pulling up to use the dump station.
The line started forming. And at this point, we were just so relaxed. It was like, we don't care. Like this will be the entertainment for the next hour. And so this one RV pulls up. Well, first of all, one guy pulls in and he's like the expert. I mean, he was in and out in 3 minutes, and I learned a lot from his efficiency. The next guy pulls in, he gets out, and he has 2 kids with him. Like they're, I don't know, maybe like 6 and 8, a boy and a girl. And he clearly doesn't know how to use the dump station, which is, I'm not being critical of that because like I don't know either. Right. But like he was like using the hose that you're supposed to hose the RV off with after you're done with the dump station, dump activity. He was using that hose to fill his water tank. I mean, like just, and then the kids were like, they were, playing tag, and they were in and around the hole that you put the sewage pipe in. Like it was cringeworthy. It was cringeworthy. We couldn't look away, but that was our Valentine's morning coffee entertainment.
Mm-hmm. You were doing, as I recall, a play-by-play, like a sports announcer. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You were critiquing everyone. So yeah.
We learned a lot, though.
Mm-hmm. We did. Yeah. Because, we've only had that one dump station experience. So I think now.
I think you've learned a lot. So that I think you learned enough that now you can do.
I was actually sitting in that camp chair. I was closer to this dump station than I was to the dump station in Catalina State Park when you dumped our RV.
Yeah. So I was surprised one of the kids didn't fall in the hole, the guy with the kids, but everyone made it.
Yeah.
Later in that day, we went on a couple of hikes. Well, we went to...
Yeah, our first stop was Water Basin.
And that is that the lowest part of the park?
Mm-hmm.
The 282 feet below sea level?
Yes.
And you were trying... Okay, so this was Valentine's Day, and you were trying to get photographs of the salt. So in the basin, the salt the soil breaks up into these interesting crack formations as the salt is kind of making its way up through the soil. And if you walk out far enough in the basin, you can get to the undisturbed area.
Mm-hmm.
And you kept looking for a heart-shaped section of soil that you were going to get your photograph and
right. There were all these shapes.
Put it on Instagram or whatever.
Every time I found one that was heart-shaped and I called you over and said, Matt, look, what does this look like? You'd say like, it's a potato. Or it's a lima bean. Yeah. Or it was...
There's no... You were stretching it.
They were hearts. I don't know. They were hearts.
Well, let's just look at the photos. We'll put the photos of those on our website.
I think everyone will see hearts. They'll see hearts, not potatoes.
A russet potato.
But Water Basin is very cool, and you can walk out for a long way. And that's a very great place to check out in the park. There's so many good hikes there.
Yeah, in Death Valley?
Yeah, all throughout Death Valley.
We did another one that day. The Golden Canyon area.
Yes.
And I think you can take this Golden Canyon. We did it as a loop, and I think you can take it all the way to Zabriskie Point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a couple different hikes in that whole
section.
We
didn't take it that far because that would have added, I think, like an extra couple miles, and it was already a long hike. But again, hardly saw anybody back there.
No, and we added on Gower Gulch, so it's called the Gower Gulch Golden Canyon Loop, and it is spectacular. You're up in the section that they call the Badlands, and it truly looks like Badlands, and oh my gosh, it is absolutely beautiful up there.
Yeah.
So gosh, the day was almost over, but we did
what you always
do,
like doing,
which is my favorite thing. We stopped back by the trailer briefly, and we got a couple of cold beers and put them in our backpacks, and we drove to the Mesquite Flat sand dunes. And of course, it's a beautiful afternoon at this point, warm and sunny. And we hiked out, and we hiked up to the top of some sand dunes, and we plopped ourselves in the sand and took off our shoes and drank our beer and watched the sunset. And it's kind of how we end every trip to Death Valley. It's one of my absolute favorite things to do.
It's a beautiful place. And even though it can be crowded, you can always find a spot on the dunes that you're by yourself.
Mm-hmm. It's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. Yeah, so we saw a pretty sunset, and then when it was over and we kind of were, shaking the sand off and getting up and packing up our empty beer cans, Matt started back to the truck a few paces ahead of me, and I was taking a few last-minute pictures because the sky was turning this beautiful pink. And so Matt headed down the sand dune, and as I'm looking down at him, I see he kind of stopped and turned in a different direction, and he was shuffling his feet and almost like walking in circles. So I called down to you, remember, and I said, "What are you doing?" And you said, "Close your eyes."
Close your eyes and roll down the dunes. Like, follow my voice.
Yeah. So I closed my eyes. And then when he told me to open them, I opened them back up. And it was so much better than a toilet. Matt had stamped out with his feet this huge heart in the sand. And sorry, I can never tell. And he said, because you didn't find your heart shapes in Water Basin, I made you one here.
Yeah, and I had
it's so romantic. It's one of the most romantic things you've ever done.
Bought you the nicest portable toilet I could buy you with a privacy tent. And all I had to do is like shuffle my feet in the shape of a heart on the sand. Like, I don't understand.
I know you don't. Yeah, I know you don't. But it was the sweetest, best Valentine's Day ever. So that wrapped up our camping part of the trip. The next day we had to, drive back to Vegas and give Milan his trailer back and then start towards home. But as we made our way back to Seattle, we talked about, the differences in renting an RV versus renting a teardrop, the pros and the cons.
Yeah. And what you did the write-up for in season 3, kind of the pros and cons. What, in your opinion, how are they different?
So obviously the RV is a lot more comfortable. And one thing we really enjoyed about the RV, I think we might have mentioned in the podcast episode, is, there's a table with booths on either side where we could play cards and games, and we had our laptops, and of course there was a kitchen and a bathroom. So definitely the RV is more comfortable. That's a plus right there. One of the cons of the RV, of course, is there are a lot fewer places that you can camp with an RV, right?
Somewhat. I mean, the little one, that 19-footer we rented, you can get it in a lot of places. But yeah, you have more options with the teardrop.
Right. And, rugged roads, I don't know how well that RV would have done on some of the rugged roads that we like to go on.
It'd be better in the rugged teardrop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, the teardrop, we really did like it a lot. It was comfortable. I think that our mistake was it's not a winter thing to do.
No. We're not doing winter camping anymore.
No. So if that would have been summer, it would have been fantastic because then, you're not freezing at night. You don't have to go to bed at 7 when it gets dark out. You can sit outside. So that was a rookie mistake. I would rent a teardrop trailer again and do it in the summer. And then, of course, it's so tiny and we could push it with our hands. So, so there are pros and cons to both.
Yeah.
But I think the advice I would give is check them both out and rent them like we did.
Not super expensive to rent either, and do what we did. If you have the time, do a short trip with a rental RV and do one with the trailer and check them out for yourself.
Right, and you'll see what you like and don't like, and it might save you a lot of money down the road if you decide to purchase one. But you know what my conclusion is?
What?
I think we need to get both.
Oh. Okay, great. Well, we have the portable toilet, so we got that going for us.
So we're set.
Yeah. What is our mailbag question for today?
Today's mailbag question comes from Penny in Athens, Georgia, and she wants to know if we have any seasonal tips for planning trips in the national parks.
That is a good question because as we went through the parks and as we've traveled, we've kind of by accident have learned certain tips and tricks for different seasons. One, which is, I know, your favorite, April is tick season.
Oh.
In many places. So we learned that in Teddy Roosevelt National Park, where we went on a hike there, and we thought it was raining.
And it was, but not.
But it wasn't raining rain. It was raining ticks on us. And then you had that same experience in Montana one time.
Right. But in Montana, it was actually in May. I was on a girls' trip, hiking trip, and we were covered with ticks when the trip was over. So yeah, springtime, April, May is tick season.
And then the heat, I guess, kills them, and then they're done for the season. Another tip is we went to Yellowstone one time for Memorial Day thinking, well, this is a kickoff to the summer, and the roads were closed because of a blizzard.
Yes.
So
it was full on winter.
Yeah.
Full on winter, which actually I think happens a lot at the parks at high elevations. So Penny, you might want to, look at the elevations, and May is not a great time. And plus, a lot of the hiking trails are still under snow in May. So that's something to be aware of when you're planning.
But we also found out that anecdotally, March turns out to be a great time to hike in Utah.
It does.
I mean, we've hiked in Utah in the summer and have almost died because of the heat. And you think like early March or really any time in March might be too early, but it's actually a perfect time.
It is.
To go to southern Utah.
I think it's also a great time to go to the parks we talked about today. Joshua Tree and Death Valley. March is a great time to go. So any of those, I think, southwestern parks, March is ideal.
Another seasonal tip, if you are into bison.
Who's not?
There are at least a couple of large bison roundups. So these parks that have large herds of bison and that have to be managed. In other words, they don't have enough space to just let the herd grow as big as it can possibly grow. Custer State Park and Antelope Island State Park in Utah, they have roundup, and I guess these roundups are like great festivals. They do things, but those are in South Dakota, Custer State Park. That's usually the end of September.
Right.
And Antelope Island, it's the end of October. You have to check the dates.
Right.
Usually they're open to the public. So that's another great seasonal tip.
Yes. We haven't been to the Custer State Park one yet. We keep missing it, but I would love to go do that one.
Yeah. We just have to, there's so many. Well, that's another seasonal tip because September is usually so busy for us. September is, it's great almost everywhere in September.
It is. That's like the perfect month. Plus, kids go back to school, and so the parks are less crowded because all the families are not taking their summer vacations at that time. So the crowds all of a sudden drop off in September, and you've got this great weather. So, I practically any park is phenomenal in September.
Now, there is one exception I know of that we have run into and friends of ours have run into in Glacier National Park. We've been hiking in early September, and it was spectacular, just beautiful. And we were having dinner at one of I think it was the Swift Current Motor Inn there, and we were asking them, like, when do they close for the season? And the waiter, he jokingly said, we close it that particular year, September 18th, because on September 19th, it snows. And we thought that was odd because we were there like a week or so before that time. And as it turns out, some friends of ours had planned to camp there that same year, like September 20th, and they got caught in a winter storm warning. So Glacier National Park and a lot of these places at elevation, it can go from summer to winter in a blink of an eye.
Right.
So,
and I think that's true for Lassen Volcanic too, that we talked about in the last episode. So I think you always want to have some winter clothes with you and some layers and kind of be prepared for a little bit of everything in September if you're in the higher elevations.
Another timing tip that we learned: if you are into hiking and color watching, the larches in North Cascades National Park, when they turn, they're spectacular. And usually when they turn, there's other underbrush that's turning brilliant colors. And oftentimes there's snow that happens. So the first week in October, it is just spectacular in North Cascades National Park, particularly where the larches are.
Yeah, and if we lost you on this one, because if you don't know what a larch is, we didn't either when we moved to Washington State. I thought it was a bird. Yes, for a long time, we would hear people here in Washington say, it's almost time for the larches. It's almost time for the larches. And I thought it was some, migratory bird that was coming in. It's a tree. It looks like an evergreen tree.
Well, it's one of the only conifers that lose their leaves, lose their needles, and they turns brilliant gold.
Right.
And they lose their
and then they all fall off.
Yeah.
So there's a very short window. Usually it's early October. I think you already said that. But yeah, they all turn this bright, beautiful yellow gold, and it's striking. North Cascades is a fantastic place to go on some hikes and see those.
What else? Seasonal tips. We were really surprised about how many great places there are to snowshoe and do other winter activities. We always thought wintertime where you take that time off and not travel to the parks, but like snowmobiling in Yellowstone was incredible. Snowshoeing in the mountains, it's not as difficult as it sounds.
No, if you can walk, you can snowshoe is kind of the way I look at it. And also a lot of these parks, they rent snowshoes to visitors. So I know that they do in Glacier National Park and they do at Bryce Canyon National Park. Again, Yellowstone is a fantastic place to snowshoe. And of course, a lot of people are into cross-country skiing, and that's another great thing to do in these parks. But, as we told you about in this episode, the weather, looking for warm weather in the West in January and February is hit and miss, but you can certainly find a lot of snow. So you can go the other way and take a snow vacation. And the parks are practically empty, and it's really a magical time.
I know this is a long answer to that question, but last tip. Again, we found this out totally by accident, but a fun thing to work into your mid and late summer travels are rodeos. Check if you're going to the West and you're going through little towns, check the events calendar and catch a rodeo. It's just a hoot.
It is.
These small town rodeos are a lot of fun, very Americana, and just work that into your itinerary.
Yeah, we ended up in Sheridan, Wyoming last summer by accident, just sort of spontaneously. We spent the night there when we were traveling with John and Lolly. And sure enough, the rodeo was in town that weekend. So we were able to buy some tickets from, I guess you'd call it a scalper, although maybe he just had extra tickets. But
yeah, they were scalping tickets, and then the stadium was half full.
Yeah. And it was one of the most fun things we've ever done.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
It was. So that's a great thing to do when you're traveling in the summer. If you have a question for us, you can send us an email to mattandkarensmith@gmail.com or reach out to us on social media. Go to facebook.com/DearBobandS, or you can find us on Instagram at mattandkarensmith. We'll review all the questions that come in, and we'll be answering them in our mailbag segment on future episodes.
To see pictures from our teardrop trailer adventures, go to www.thedearbobandsuepodcast.com and click on the title for the episode 10. There you'll find the show notes for this episode and links to other information.
To all of you who've given us a rating or a review, thank you so much. If you haven't yet, Matt and I would really appreciate it if you'd review our show on Apple Podcasts, even if you listen to it on one of the other podcast apps like Google, Spotify, or Stitcher. It helps new listeners find our show.
The books that this podcast is based on are available on Amazon.com. Just search for Dear Bob and Sue. And you can also find more information about us by heading over to www.dearbobandsue.com.
Our show is produced by the miracle workers over at Puddle Creative in Portland, Oregon. Our artwork is by the designers at Expert Subjects, and our theme music is by Will West. And remember, the way to a woman's heart is with a toilet.
I still think that that's the best Valentine's Day gift ever. Bye.